Hello everybody, Joanna here from Fresh Press Patterns. Welcome to this video. It has been designed especially for somebody that is relatively new to the sewing journey. I've got 8 tips for you that I think might help with what sometimes can become a roller coaster ride when it comes to sewing. And so if you're relatively new, or if you have a few projects under your belt and you're starting to develop that love-hate relationship with sewing, I think these 8 tips might help you out with, once again, the roller coaster ride. And so tip number 1, and I think this is very obvious very early, is that sewing is a skill. Like any skill worth learning, whether you're taking on cooking or painting, you're signing up for that wonderful yoga class that everybody told you to sign up for, only to realize you don't know what on earth you're doing in class 1. The same applies to sewing. So just do realize that you are learning a new skill. You are trying to master a new skill, and it does take time. And it's well worth it if you do stick out. I promise. It's very rewarding. Tip number 2 is stop sewing clothes that look good on other people. That's a tough one. What do I mean by that? I think we're very seduced by what we see on social media and the beautiful makes that are out there. But just because something looks amazing or photographs beautifully, that does not mean that it will look or good on you. It does not mean you will feel good in it, and it does not mean it will complement your body and your proportions. We're not meant to look good in the same things. So you need to learn your own proportions and what looks good on you and not everybody else. How do you do that? Well, you grab your phone and you head to the stores and you start trying on absolutely everything. And then you start taking pictures. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Why do you do this? Because you want to start building a library of things that look good on you and things that don't look good on you. Or maybe look good on you is a harsh way of saying things that you feel really good in and things that do not flatter you. That might be a nicer way of saying it. So, take pictures, try on everything. Things that you wouldn't even dream of putting on and trying on. Try it on. You might surprise yourself on the things that you thought you loved and will look good in, and you end up not feeling great in, and things that you maybe would have just passed by on a rack and decided it was, the silhouette was, or the print was really, really flattering on you. And so you're going on a journey here and you're learning your proportions. And once you learn your proportions, it's going to be so much easier to pick the patterns and the fabrics that complement you, which will, add to the fact that you won't be wasting your time and money making things that you do not want to wear. So very, very important to learn your proportions and not necessarily be guided to sew things only based on what you see on your social media. This leads me to tip number 3, and that is start sewing with natural fibers. And I know this is really, really hard to say or maybe even hear, because you're like, I'm new to sewing. I don't want to spend so much money on fabric. But fabric is your canvas. And so if you are sewing to step out of, the whole fashion cycle and the waste that occurs in there, why on earth would you invest your hard-earned money into fabrics that are not the best for the environment, man-made, and are very inexpensive? And if they're inexpensive, that means they're going to fall apart a lot sooner. They're not going to wear as nicely. They're going to probably fade quicker. They're going to fall apart faster. And so if you are trying to sort of sidestep the whole waste of the fashion cycle, the only way to maybe do that is to work with natural fibers. Natural fibers also are a lot easier to handle, and they are a lot easier to press. And part of the skill of sewing is being able to handle fabric. You're manipulating fabric in the sewing machine. And so why would you make your life that much harder by working with a flimsy fabric or a man-made fiber that does not handle well, and you're just adding to your angst? So do yourself a favor. Invest in natural fibers. Fabric is your canvas. It really is. And nicer fabrics will hang longer in your closet. They will stand the test of time. And I know it's quite an investment, which is why it leads me to tip number 4 is start simple. I know we can be very seduced by, the garment with the lining, the sleeves, the 3 zippers, 8 pockets, and 16 buttons down the back, which, all looks beautiful. But once again, if sewing is a skill, you don't want to jump off the deep end and frustrate yourself. So start simple. And simple does not need to mean boring. Think of simple or simple silhouettes. Think of them as the base layers of the wardrobe that you are building. So what you're doing is you're building the ground level of your self-made wardrobe. And so you do need some basics in there. You need some plain pants. You need some plain tops. You need a plain cardigan, the little black dress. You need all of that, and then you're going to build around that. So what you do is, if you do start small or simple, you can then indeed invest in a nicer fabric, because the skill for a simpler garment isn't going to take you as long. And because you've already learned your proportions and what does and doesn't look good on you, you are less likely to pick patterns that won't complement you, which means you can start investing in nicer fabrics and do simple. So leave the coat with the lining, the satin sleeves, the belt loops, 6 pockets, and all of that, for just a little bit further down the road. This leads me to tip number 5. Please mark and follow your notches. I know when you start sewing, they can be a little trivial, like, why do I need them? I know when I was teaching pattern drafting, notches were just, why do I need notches? We're kind of non-existent on patterns. So, God, if I had $1 for every time I had to ask, where are your notches? I'd be a very rich woman. But anyway, I digress. Follow your notches. Why? Because notches helps with the balance of your garment. There's a reason why they are there. And so it's not enough just to pin something together and sew it through and hope it works. And if it doesn't work, you just cut off the bottom and then make it all even. Your garment will not hang quite right. It just won't. So get in the habit of marking and following your notches. Which leads me to tip number 6. Start following and using your grain lines. Why? Grain lines are there for a reason. They're not just put on garments for for the fun of it. They should be followed. Why? Because they help the garment hang and hang properly. If you've ever sewn anything or worn anything where the side seams kind of start twisting on you and just not feeling quite right, and the shoulders pulling and all that, odds are you have a garment that was cut off grain. And the grain, the fabric is trying to find its home, its natural hanging place. And that's why you're starting to get twisted side seams, which is something you don't want if you are building a wardrobe that you want to wear over and over and over again. This leads me to tip number 8 is finish the inside of your garment. I think fast fashion does a really amazing job at not finishing the inside of the seams, just whipping things together and hope they hold on long enough for the garment to make it to the store, to the dressing room, to the till, and home. And so once again, if you are building a wardrobe and something that you want to wear over and over again, do take the time to finish the inside of your seams. Make the inside of your garment as pretty as you can, and I promise you will reach for that garment over and over again. Nothing drives me more crazy than unfinished seams, but I digress. And lastly, tip number 8. This is maybe less of a tip, but more of a comment is criticism kills creativity. What do I mean by that? I think we can be really mean to ourselves and critical of ourselves when we're sewing. We keep once again comparing ourselves to the finished products that we see in our social feed, not realizing maybe the blood, sweat, and tears that it took to get to that photo. So be kind to yourself. And talk nicely to yourself, and just realize that it's going to take you a while to master this skill, and being critical of yourself and expecting the world of yourself as you are learning a brand new skill is very hard. It's a great way to kill your creativity and make you not want to do this. And you've invested in the fabric and the pattern in the machine, maybe in a little studio for your sewing. So do be nice to yourself and kind. And I promise you that when you take all of these 8 tips and apply them, your journey will be a lot smoother, and your end results will be a lot nicer. So I hope these tips were helpful. I hope you've learned something new, and I hope that you're going to pick and choose a few and apply them. And if you do, I'd love to hear from you. Is there something here that maybe surprised you? Is there something here that you decided to apply and it has helped? I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear from you. Keep sewing, and I hope to see you in the next video.